So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for the meeting. A native son of Atlanta, Georgia, Nathaniel Smith has been passionate about racial equity from the very beginning. As a child of Southern Freedom Movement activists, his experience observing many of the historic injustices and inequalities placed on people from underserved communities was the driving motivation to create a platform that would not only expose these inequities, but also bring the issue of racial equity to a larger scale. Bring together groups and individuals to develop real solutions and address these inequities in our communities so that prosperity can be created and shared by all. Smith's leadership was instrumental in partnering with several organizations to create the Justice 40 Accelerator, which he will speak to you about today, designed to provide organizations with innovative, frontline community climate projects for the assistance to better position them to pursue and win federal funding. This is really critical right now. And to hold accountable the Biden-Harris administration's executive order to direct 40% of federal climate action funds to disadvantaged communities. So I know all of us in this room have seen the community come to this conference and talk about some of these hard subjects. And I know some of us want to do better. And I hope this conference has made it possible for you all to do better. And I hope that what we can hear from today is a sense of how do we move forward, a community moving forward. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Nathaniel Smith.
Wow, you're the last attendant standing. Congratulations. Hopefully you'll get some type of award or proclamation or something for being willing to stick around to hear me talk. This has just been a great experience for me. Been very excited to see so many people willing to think differently and do differently around the various issues that we're facing as it relates to our climate. And so I have a lot of information that I want to share. And even more important, the real stars of the show are actually two frontline leaders that I brought with me to talk about the incredible work that they're doing. And I felt like if we're really talking about the work and how we can do different, be different, live different, then we have to lift up the people who are providing those shining examples that we can follow. So I want to make sure that I provide time for them to speak. But again, a community moving forward. Quick commercial. Some of you may not be aware, the Partnership for Southern Equity is an organization that is focused on advancing racial equity in Georgia and in the American South. We have various portfolio areas. We're a multi-issue organization. We have done a great deal of work in the energy equity and climate justice space. However, every area of the organization is connected, each portfolio. So we really focus on the intersectional aspects of advancing racial equity in ways that will ensure that all people have an opportunity to participate and prosper. And we see the fight for climate justice and energy equity is one of those key areas that we must do the work. And we didn't just come up with this by happenstance. Our ancestors, our elders, the individuals who have been fighting for so long understood that we were connected as well. Regardless of where you live or what your socioeconomic background is, we're all connected. And King talked about that best when he talked about what he called the network of mutuality, that we are bound by a single garment of destiny. What affects one directly affects us all indirectly. So you can't focus on the environment and climate and just be focused on reducing carbon emissions. You can't be a true environmentalist and focus exclusively on carbon capture without also focusing on Black children in West Atlanta who have to choose between paying their light bill and buying groceries. It is all connected. You know, you cannot focus on our wildlife, which is very, very important in our green space, without understanding that there are some places where people can't breathe or have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, or even positioned to benefit from this emerging clean energy economy that is happening, or the communities that have been harmed by the decisions that we've made in the past. So what does it truly mean to love this planet? I would submit to you that loving this planet also means loving all people that live on it. So as an organization, we do a great deal of work in working with various stakeholders. I see my friends at the Ray C. Anderson Foundation with me and in front of me, always standing with me in this conversation. Dr. Chaffee, it's good to see you. I love you. I'm so glad representing Spelman College. You know, as a product of the Atlanta University Center, you always have to lift up Spelman and the HBCUs that are connected to the AU Center. But we work with various partners, academia, philanthropy, government, to really make racial equity real in our communities. And, you know, the partnership for Southern Equity is only as strong as our partners. So we do a great deal of work in helping to facilitate the agency, not empower, to facilitate the agency of leaders in community, because they already have power. Our responsibility is to make sure that they're able to wield it and implement their vision for the communities that they want to achieve. So I just wanted to leave you with some things to think about in this work around growing community. And what will it take to really grow a sustainable and resilient community? A community that will not only survive the various challenges that we're facing as it relates to our climate, but thrive as well. When I have various conversations about resilience, we fail to recognize that there are certain segments of our community that have been forced to be resilient for over 400 years in America. So it's not about surviving, it's about thriving. And so I'm bringing you this kind of linear perspective as I've kind of learned to do this work by way of my elders and the work that I've done. For me, I see it as 5 key areas that we must begin to focus on if we really want to create a new world, or what Dr. King called the beloved community, where all people are important and critical. We must resist, we must reform, we must repent, we must repair, and then we must reimagine. We must resist. Power concedes nothing without a demand. We will never negotiate our way into the policies and the actions that are needed in order to realize a more sustainable and just world. No beautifully written report, no masterfully conceived press conference, no well-attended march will realize the type of change that we want unless we're willing to stand together and resist the injustices that our communities are facing, that we are facing in our society that we are living in today. We can't just wait on people to do the right thing. Yes, the good guy may win in the movies, but that's not necessarily the case all the time. We have to fight for it. And until we're willing to fight for what we believe in, truly fight for it, we will not win. So we must first be willing to resist the injustices that we're facing, that our planet is facing as a result of extreme extraction in the history of fossil fuels, and all of the trauma and the history that has been connected to the challenges that we're facing on our planet. And then after we resist, we must be willing to reform. We must acknowledge the fact that we need a values revolution, not only in Georgia, not only the South, but the nation. Why do I say that? Because values are a reflection, that policy, forgive me, is a reflection of the values of people in power. I'm going to say that again. Public policy is a reflection of the values of people in power. So if we're serious about transforming our communities, we will never program our way into justice. We have to work on public policy. Yes, I appreciate all of the people that are doing great work around feeding the hungry and doing all of these programmatic activities. But if we don't address the systems that continue to perpetuate the injustices that we are facing, the corporate decisions that constantly place polluting apparatuses in Black and brown communities, the financial systems that continue to minimize opportunities for fresh fruits and vegetables to be found in predominantly Black communities, the policies that make it difficult for sidewalks to be built in communities where mothers are pushing kids on the street with strollers, and still in metropolitan Atlanta, after all of these years, we don't have a truly comprehensive metropolitan transit system. That is policy. So we have to begin to reform, work together after we resist, reform the challenges that we're facing. I'm gonna move quickly because I want to talk a little bit about the great work that our leaders are doing in the community. The next thing that we have to do is repent. And this doesn't necessarily equate to, for some of us as Christians, yes, we learn a great deal about repentance. But I will say from a broader perspective, it's hard to move forward as a community if the people who have been involved in perpetuating the harm and trauma are not willing to own it and apologize and give the communities that have been harmed the ability to say, I forgive you. True change cannot happen. It cannot happen in communities. Yes, policies can change, but if the hearts of people don't change, we will constantly be in this cycle of back and forth as it relates to our policy decision making, because we have not come together as a human family and made a decision that we must move together as a human family towards a more inclusive and sustainable and resilient world. This is an important part that a lot of times we forget, that we must be willing to sit at the table as family and discuss the unfortunate things that have happened in our community. We must, for our energy advocates, we must be willing as a community to understand that before we were using electricity like we're using the power of this room, it was the energy of slaves, of free labor that helped to build a Southern economy. Where do we have that conversation? We have to understand how the work around land in this country and the conservation of land did not necessarily begin with good intentions. All we have to do is ask our Native American brothers and sisters about that. So we have to not only create safe spaces for us to have these conversations, we also have to create brave spaces where we're willing to have real conversations that are not about slapping people on the hand and saying that you're wrong and I'm right, but it's a realization that we cannot survive on this planet without each other, that we must work together to realize the world that we want, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. And then we can move towards repair. But that repair does not and cannot stop with I apologize. It has to also include real resources, money, green, investments in communities that have not been invested in. We cannot accept or expect for communities that have been traumatized to forgive you if you're not also speaking with your pocketbook as well as your heart. We have to work to create environments where people can thrive. And it has to happen through investments in communities that have been disinvested in. And it's not just about money. There are other aspects of it as well. But we have to begin to work forward collectively and understand that there's a difference between restitution and reparations. If we want to repair, it's not just about money. It's about how do we work together to move forward collectively and understand the harm that communities have faced and make a commitment as a human family to invest in that support. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, we must reimagine together a new world that includes everyone, a world that sees everyone as precious and every aspect of our planet is precious. We cannot allow the past relationships, past failures, past harms get in the way of us coming together to begin the process of first reimagining a new world and then working together to create it. We can do it, but we have to be willing to step away from all of the things that have kept us from coming together and begin the process of moving forward in a more collective and just way. And so for me, that is really the framework that we utilize at the Partnership of Southern Equity, and in particular in our Just Energy portfolio that is working to advance climate justice and energy equity, understanding that we cannot have a sustainable society without it also being a just society. We have to understand it, and that is the work of Just Energy. So I wanted to provide a quick example, and I'm gonna move quickly with this, is one example of some of the innovations that we've been able to advance through the work of the Partnership of Southern Equity. You heard a little bit about President Biden's executive order requiring 40% of dollars to go towards communities that have been overburdened by pollution and injustice. You know, the Partnership of Southern Equity saw that as a clarion call to play a role in ensuring that those dollars got to the people who needed it the most. I can submit to you that without real work, the money being available is not enough. For all of us who remember the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, we know that. The PPP resources, we know that. So when you put good money into bad systems, right, you will continue to have bad results. And so we could not stand by and allow that this time. And so we created an initiative called the Justice 40 Accelerator with our partners to ensure that we could make sure that not only we would acknowledge the history of structural injustice and racism in the federal government, in particular around procurement and contracting, but also make sure that there was an alternative delivery system that could work in complementary with our federal government to ensure that those organizations were positioned to actually compete for the resources that were available as a result of President Biden's executive order. And so for us, it's not just about getting the money out. See, that's another thing that is very important for us at the Partnership for Southern Equity. We believe that the work around sustainability and resilience is important, but we also believe the work of repair and healing is just as important. And so we looked at this as an opportunity to not just get money to communities, but to also begin the process of healing and repairing communities that have been disinvested in since the creation of the United States, but more recently in the 20th century. So for us, it was also about developing a shared of beliefs that would bind the work. Yes, goals are important, but we believe that our beliefs, our shared beliefs, are even more important. And so these are just a breakdown of some of our beliefs as it relates to the accelerator. These are our core partners that have worked with us to help to develop the accelerator: Elevate Energy out of Chicago, Groundswell out of DC, Hummingbird Group, Partnership for Southern Equity, and the Solutions Project. All came and stood and said, we will work with you to ensure that we will develop a new way forward that could support the type of investments that are needed in communities that have been disinvested in. This is just a quick operating framework. So we use a cohort model. So with each engagement with community, we use a cohort model. We have a team of technical assistance providers, of course, our core leadership team, and we work with philanthropy. So the majority of the dollars that we have received for the accelerator have come from philanthropy, not the government. So this is independent of the Justice 40 executive order. This is an effort that organizations have helped to facilitate with the support of philanthropy in advancing and in this agenda and ensuring that folks could get paid. And so these were our outcomes, which were critical, that frontline communities are building capacity to navigate public funding, not just for Justice 40, but also for local opportunities for contracting and procurement, as well as other big opportunities that are coming down the pipeline, that frontline community-led projects are more efficiently and successfully applying for these proposals and opportunities, that we facilitate an ecosystem of leaders, Black leaders and historically disinvested communities of color that can work together and be more effective in pushing for change collectively, and also begin the process of resourcing, transforming the resourcing system to move beyond, again, getting the money out, but really focus on repairing and restoring organizations and the communities that they support. So we also did what I thought was also critical, was a story map. Where our research arm, the Data Research Innovation and Policy team, actually did a story map that articulated the history of structural racism and contracting and procurement in the federal government. This was very important that we actually began to map and lay out this history so the administration and others could understand how this history, how structural racism embedded in contracting and procurement have minimized the opportunities for frontline organizations to truly benefit from the resources that are provided by the federal government. You can find that on our website, and we're continuing to amplify it because we think that by being able to articulate the nature of the problem, we can all come together to solve it. This is some of the work that we did. So even before we developed the accelerator, we listened to the community. We did national listen sessions where we listened to actually understand what were the barriers that organizations led by communities of color were actually facing in getting money from the federal government. If we developed the curriculum, what would it look like? How could we support you? And we learned from them, helped to develop the curriculum, formed a cohort of leaders, and then we launched the accelerator. These were the initial 52 organizations from around the country who received resources, $25,000 in pre-development grant dollars, also technical assistance support. Also, we hired navigators to help these organizations navigate through the various challenges that the federal government provided. And we also provided coaching and, again, a village of organizations that were now willing to work together from Puerto Rico to Chicago and other places around the country. We're actually on our third cohort now. We have over 100 organizations now that we're supporting and funding. So these are all of the things that we're providing, and I talked about it: seed funding, connections, mentorship, know-how building, for facilitating the community and generating impact. So again, it is a wraparound agenda, a strategy, understanding the challenges that many of these organizations are facing and communities are facing, and really providing the resources that are needed in order to make this happen. And so this is just a breakdown of our success so far. So far, we've been able to facilitate over close to $29 million so far from the Biden administration in getting resources to the community. We have an 81% success rate with the organizations that we've worked. We've helped to facilitate over $63 million in total proposals and requests. And we continue to really begin to make a difference, in my opinion. And again, this has only been around for a little over 2 years, and we've been able to draw down about $29 million so far. So, that may seem like a small number, but I think about what that number would be if we were not as intentional about ensuring that Black folks and other folks really had a chance to benefit from these opportunities. So I'm just really thankful that our staff and our partners have worked so hard to ensure that that Justice 40 actually is playing a role in transforming the communities that have been harmed by history of structural injustice. So now I want to take a step back, and I want to provide an opportunity for two awesome leaders to reflect on what I've shared and talk a little bit about their work as well. So we have Adrienne Rice, who is the leader of Georgia Sustainable Futures, and Eric Simpson, who is on the board of directors of the West Georgia Farmers Collaborative. They are both part of the Justice 40 Accelerator cohort, and I think you were both part of the first cohort, right? The first cohort of the cohort. So please, y'all come up and just share a little bit. It's all right.
Okay. All right. And I saw Nathan with his notes and I was like, oh, okay. Let me,
That type of part.
well, all right, I'm ready. Okay. So we were very happy at Sustainable Georgia Futures, we were very happy to be a part of the Justice 40 Accelerator cohort. And the reason why is so many different reasons, but one of the main reasons why is that we're a Black women-led organization, okay? Of organizers or activists, of scholars who have come together in order to address what we feel are two of our nation's problems, which is climate change and systemic racism, by way of the green economy. And so the reason why we came up with this, and I'm the founder of it, is I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia. I was raised by two women. So I would spend my summers in Georgia with my Aunt Emily in East Point. And I would be in Chattanooga to go to school. And then when we got older, we moved to Atlanta. And we've lived all over Lithonia, different places in Georgia. And I really feel like I have over 20 years of organizing experience. Name a place, I've organized it in and out of this country, okay? But Atlanta was a place that always, like gave me my foundation, would always pull me back home. You can imagine 20-something-year-old young Black woman going out into the world. It can be quite frightening. But Atlanta, every time that I came home, it grounded me with the people who cared and loved me. And so I would come home often and fly home, and I would see, I don't know, after the Olympics that you guys noticed this young Black woman with her hands out at Centennial with all the little kids running around. And every time I saw it, no matter where I was coming from, different parts of the country or different parts of the world, like, oh, she's welcoming me home. Yes, like I didn't feel like I was home until I finally got on that escalator and came up. And then just in organizing, one of the things that happens is that people don't really want to organize in the South. Right? I worked for labor for a very long time. I work with some political groups, and they really don't want to organize in the South. They have this helicopter mentality when it comes to the South. And I decided that I was never going to be able to work in the South the way that I wanted to unless I created something of my own. And so without really any work, with a couple of contracts, I was just like, I'm coming home. Solar company, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna do something. And when I start trying to build solar, well, I worked with the Sierra Club when I was at graduate student at FAMU in 1999. So environment has always been a part of something that I do. And so when I was up in Chicago on my last stint, before I decided I'm just going to make a way to get back home. I was asked like, wow, I was helping people start their solar companies up there. So I was like, okay, well, let me go. We got a lot of sun in Georgia. Let me go back to Georgia and see if I could do this. And I just had obstacles after obstacles after obstacles. Being Black, I knew it was a part of it. Being a woman, I knew it was a part of it. You know, I give off a young spirit, even though I'm older. So I knew that was a part of it. You know, so you had all of these dynamics that was happening. And I was just like, Adrienne, stop trying to do this. Do what is flowing. So organizing flows through me. Okay. So I said, okay, let's try to start organizing. And that's when SGF came to be. And it was really about that. And it was really about me being pissed off too, because I was at home and I saw that my family members that used to have one job, now they got 2 and 3. After the housing crisis, y'all know statistics, those were my people still being displaced throughout Georgia, I got people in Macon. I can't even believe it. My family in Macon struggling right now. It's like a whole bunch of things that are happening right now. And I was just like, you know what? You've been in these social justice movements. You got to use these tools that you've learned in other communities and use it in your own community. And that's what it was really about. And so at SGF, we have this mantra, and I was trying to pull it up. We said it at our general meeting. There's all types of power in this world, but we at SGF, we are obsessed with growing people power by saving our time, our money, our energy for investments in our community, strategic partnerships, and generational wealth. We will amplify the power for people to have to make the changes we want to see. So it's about agency. It's about recognizing folks' power that already exists, as Nathan said. And so we do that in several ways. So we have a campaign that's called the Sankofa Community Issue Assembly. And it's house meetings. And if some of you were in the sessions that was before, we use house meetings to go and build power. We use that organizing tool to build power and just engage people instead of going to people and saying to them, you know, hey, you guys should be worried about the air over here. No, what is it that you want to work on? What are you working on? What can I be a part of? So that's what the house meeting, the Sankofa is, so that we can be in community with folks and be in true partnership. And then so that's one piece. We have a fellowship program because a lot of people, you know, my people, we've always done stuff that has been sustainable in order to survive. Like, you better not throw out that foil, rinse it off and reuse it. Do not throw out that jar. That's a good drinking jar. So now it's fashionable. And so we've always done things like that. So even when people don't think that I'm a part of this sustainable world, you are a part of this sustainable world. So we have went out with our fellowship program. We have a fellowship program. This year, we just finished up like 2 weeks ago, our 3rd cohort. Yay. And it was, the best cohort we had, because it's closer to what we envisioned, which is intergenerational. We had people who were 60 years old that were in the cohort. We had people who graduated from Morehouse and Spelman, or we had people who were in school. We had people from community colleges that was a part of it. We had people who had not went to school at all. And that's what we really want. We say it doesn't matter what parts of life, this is all our fight, right? And so, and we want you to be a part of this economy. Why do we focus on the economy, right? So I wanted to build a solar company to basically give Black people jobs in solar, okay? Because I saw that we were not in solar jobs. But when we started doing the research, we started seeing across the sectors in environmental jobs and entrepreneurship, Black people are dead last heap. We are last, okay? We are not in these jobs. We do not have entrepreneurship. We do not have any of these things. I mean, Hispanics are doing a little bit better than us, but they always put them in the the low level jobs, right? But everybody else comparable to the workforce, like Black Americans are 13% of the workforce, 13% of this country. And after COVID, it went down 12%. So you can imagine why that is, right? And when you look at energy sectors, we're not even half a lot of times, and we're way below. So there needs to be some intentionality here to focus on that. So we noticed that across the board. And so I knew it couldn't just be about solar. It had to be about this economy. And then this Inflation Reduction Act happened and the Justice 40 happened. I was like, oh my God, it is lining up. Everything is lining up. And so we knew we had to we couldn't just address the workforce development piece of this. We couldn't just address it with organizing. We had to address, if we want to address climate change, we had to address systemic racism. And so we look at systemic racism, and it's a part, if you come to our climate justice education meetings, which are every month, go to agreensouth.org and you can join virtually. And we train people on how to organize, but we have discussions about this because we're going to be the change. And then the fellowship program is one piece. And then we have the organizing, and I feel like I'm missing something, weatherize. So we just got a contract like literally last week with the city of Atlanta to do weatherize. So Energy Burton Homes, we're a part of a collaborative that is going out and making sure that these homes are, fit with 200 homes that are going to be fit to be energy efficiency wise. So there is so much that's happening with SGF, and I feel like the Justice 40 Accelerator program was such a huge, big part of it. And just being a part of that cohort, going on those first meetings, seeing people who look like me, but seeing people of color that are trying to figure this out. Some farther along, some in the middle, some a little lagging behind, but we're all trying to struggle this together. It still raises my spirits. If I can jump on the calls, a lot of times I'll just try to jump on just to raise my spirits up to see that we're not in this fight alone. So thank you, Nathan, for thinking about us and letting me come up here and talk about SGF. And thank you all.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Simpson. I'm this guy that you see here with this bushel of pink-eyed purple hull peas. I'm a small farmer as well, and I'm a part of West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. West Georgia Farmers Cooperative was founded in 1966. This cooperative is actually older than I am. I joined about 12 years ago because I just love the value of cooperatives and cooperative economies and what they mean for a community. And so, and from that point on, we've just been doing the work of bringing local, fresh, sustainable, clean food to our various communities throughout West Central Georgia. Now, our organization was founded by Black farmers back in 1966. About 80 families came together. Then if you add on average 8 to 9 children a family, we had about an 800 member cooperative. And just listening to Nathan's earlier presentation and listening to Ms. Rice just a few minutes ago, just reminds me how things come full circle. So this work was kind of being done before many of us were here, especially in our communities. And we were doing it the best way that we could. We were definitely built with self-sufficiency. And we were pooling resources, getting some limited government help, but we were making it work. We were keeping our small family farms alive. And some of our farms in our community have been in their families for over 100 years, some close to 200 years. And that's because of this collective work that we do, aggregating, scaling together, finding markets, and filling them, meeting a need. And so when we applied and we were selected for the Justice 40 program, we were excited because we found not only was it coming from the White House, but also these other organizations that is committed to doing this work of building communities. And as he was going through his 5 R's, reimagine really stood out to me, because that's exactly what we're trying to do for the communities that we're working in. Now, obviously, you've heard the terms food desert, food apartheid. How many of you all know the difference between a food desert and a food apartheid? And so you won't have to yell from the audience, I'll explain it to you. Food deserts are, this is terminology that was coined by the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, this food apartheid. Food deserts are naturally occurring, right? And apartheid are what? Man-made structures, restrictive structures. So a lot of our communities, we believe, have been intentionally made food apartheids. And that's what the work, and that's what we come in here at West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. That's the work that we're doing. So what we are, how we're reimagining our community, in our community specifically here, I was born and raised in a city called LaGrange, Georgia. And so that whole West Georgia area is several counties, many of them border Alabama, border East Alabama, and they stretch south of Atlanta from, say, Carroll County down through Muskogee down around to Fort Benning. And so in going as far east as Fort Valley. So pretty much that crescent is what we consider West Central Georgia. Some refer to it as the Chat Flint region. So that's where we call home, and that's where we do our work. And so we are in the process of building, not only are we just growing food and distributing it and selling it, but we're building food systems, because we understand we are in the business of building and stimulating economies that we can control and manage, and that we can compel on economies that are democratically controlled through cooperative economics. So we purchased 2 acres back in August, cash free and clear, and we're in the process of building on that. The work is actually happening now. We're building a cooperative economic complex, a term that we coined a co-oplex, that will include that will be anchored by a co-op owned grocery store, a shared commercial kitchen, and a credit union. And we will also sell fuel there, because this community, like a lot of our communities, have long been neglected, haven't really had representation. Resources have gone to other sides of town. This is the south side of town. This big in geography, has a major highway coming through it. Matter of fact, Highway 27, which I believe is like the longest highway like in the United States. And it is in the process of being renovated. It's being widened. So buildings are being demolished. Space right away is being taken. And of course, from the ashes, like a phoenix, we hope to be one of the first businesses to rise after this road is reconstructed. So there's some natural redevelopment taking place here, and we want to rebuild our community to where it looks more of a cooperatively owned and controlled community, because not only are we food apartheided, but we've also been financially apartheided, extracted, exploited. And so we're in the process of reimagining a community where we can all prosper, and where we can do it in a way that's not exploitative, and of course, and so that we can all win, so to speak. So I'm going to keep it short. I didn't bring any notes. So I just wanted to share with you all the work that we're doing, and how the vision and the mission and the values of the J40 and their partners, such as Southern Partners for Southern Equity here, align with what we're doing. And we benefited so much just from the technical assistance, because what it's done, and just keeping my nomenclature in agriculture, it's led us to greener pastures. The technical assistance has led us to the little money that we got. That was kind of, that's fine. Of course, when you're a small organization, every dime counts, especially non-restricted funds, right? But the technical assistance that we've been able to get has literally led us to greener pastures, and we've been able to tap into other local, state, and federal resources to help us, along with our own industry and business and effort to get the capital that we need to build this world that we're kind of reimagining. So I'll stop there, and thank you all for having me, and thank you for inviting me. And
so for me, it was really important to leverage this platform as a way to lift up what I believe are the true leaders of the environmental movement. You know, individuals who are focused on ensuring that their communities have an opportunity to truly benefit from the transition that we are experiencing. And I would submit to you that in your communities, there are organizations and leaders like these. Do you know them? Are you creating space for them at your table? Or do you assume, or are you assuming that you have all the right answers? Or that these communities don't necessarily have anything that they can bring of value to the discourse? I would say, again, and I said it before, a truly sustainable society is a truly just society. And we have to play a role in ensuring that we have leaders at our position to not only help us move forward in that direction, but also hold us accountable for some of the harm that we have perpetuated as so-called environmentalists on Black communities and historically disinvested communities of color. We're all connected as a human family, y'all. If we don't understand that, we're not gonna win. So that is why it was so important to lift them up, and please give them a round of applause again. So again, I mean, you know, I just wanted to really close by working to, you know, you all to understand that, you know, that it is at the end of the day about Black liberation. It's about working to ensure that Black people are positioned to partner and lead this environmental agenda. I believe in my heart, in my organization, and others who are advancing this work, we believe that when Black communities are free, we all are free, right? So we must find a way to see the humanity in all of us. So I'm gonna leave y'all with an assignment. So in October, the Partnership for Southern Equity with our partners are having a summit in Memphis, Tennessee, called SURGE, Southern Unity for Racial Justice and Equity Summit, which will occur in October, from October the 5th through the 7th, where we will have, of course, a climate justice and energy equity track, and we would love for y'all to visit and participate. But we believe that we're at a critical point in the history of the South. I truly believe that so goes the South, so goes the nation. And we must be willing to create and reimagine together that South that we want and that nation that we want for all people. And so we have taken a lead with our partners on creating a space for us to begin to have that conversation. You can find out more information about SURGE by going to Partnership for Southern Equity's website. We also, and I think y'all know this, we also have a request for proposals right now that will end on June the 1st. If you're doing great work in your communities and you would like to submit a panel discussion, please feel free to do that. But again, you know, thank you so much for providing an opportunity for me to share. This has been a blessing for me. Thank you for also allowing me to lift up our allies. PSC is not a strong organization without strong allies. We're nothing without our allies. And so I wanted to make sure I took the time to lift them up. But again, reimagine what the world can be. And don't be afraid to step into that dream. And even more so, be bold and courageous enough to make it happen. Thank you.
Just a few more words, I promise. So I've spent my career in this climate space, tearing down silos between disciplines, between communities. And I'm embarrassed, but inspired to say thank you to Mr. Smith and the other people who are in this room to help me see how to tear down the silos between the environmental movement and the civil rights movement. And I am so grateful that we can finally unite. I'm a child of the 60s. I marched on both of those things, but I never occurred to me, and this is amazing that it never occurred to me that they needed to be united. And that silo has been torn down by people like you, and I'm very, very grateful. Thank you.